We've all seen the movie The Matrix. It was interesting and fun on the big screen of the TV, but has it become a bit too real in your own life? Are you seeing glitches in the Matrix and trying to figure out what's happening? Have you been told that you've been tricked and that you need to fight against what they've done to you? The deception. Whether you're just beginning to notice, or if you've been searching for a more peaceful and congruent way to live without battling them, you're in the right place. I'm Ken, and I'll be joined by Eliza and Raina Stella. Let's explore together on the Liberty Ark. We are back at the Liberty Ark Podcast. We're on podcast number 20 this time. And I'm here with Raina Stella and Eliza. And Eliza, how you doing this evening?
Doing great, Ken. Thanks. Great to be here with you both.
How about you, Raina Stella?
Likewise. Happy to be here with you guys.
Good. See, I was nice to you guys today.
Yay.
All right. And we are on, let me see if I can get this up here, episode number 20. We're talking about some terms. So it sounds boring, but it's not going to be. Because words and definitions are really, really important with the stuff we're working with. And it's very important that you understand the history behind the words, because otherwise you don't really know the meaning of the word unless you understand where it came from and what relevance it had in the past. And we'll get into some really interesting components of that today. Any thoughts before we get reading?
Just a quick thought. How are you doing, Ken?
I'm just doing great. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
Cool.
All right. So Eliza's going to kind of lead us off with the reading, and we're just going to talk about each word as we go along and maybe reference back and forth if we need to.
Sounds wonderful. I never thought I would like words so much, but the definition of words part, if I could just share, was my eye opener into a different world because of the kind of the switcheroo and that's being pulled on us. So yeah, I'll just get going here. Sounds great. Episode 20, terms with the concept of slavery. Chattel, noun. Chattel is movable property, not real estate, or possessions such as money, vehicles, stock, livestock, and persons.
That's an interesting one there, huh? Persons.
And we differentiate here persons. Persons in our modern world, in the old world, the non-technical world, person meant a live man or woman. Okay. Now we've come to know that person means it's a corporation. It's a fictional entity that isn't a live man or woman, but is often portrayed as being the live man or woman to kind of trick us.
So the meaning of the word has changed, as we mentioned in previous episodes. This is an example, a great example of how it's changed and how different it is.
Yeah, and interestingly, all the major dictionaries every year will have a list of the words that changed this year. I mean, words disappear from the dictionary and new words come in. Words change in meaning, and literally in the definitions in the dictionaries, they change over time because society uses them differently, and the dictionaries have to flow with that. So if you look up things in an older dictionary, you're going to find different meanings, but there's still an inherited component of that drives forward, and that's going to be important in what we're going to talk about today.
So since the meaning of the word changed today, and the dictionaries reflect a different meaning in the past, how does one know which meaning to go by, and the meaning from the past, is it still valid today?
Well, in the word person in particular, I think there's a way that we use it when we're communicating with each other that's pretty much the way it used to be, live person. But the legal definition of person now is different. So you'd have to go to a legal dictionary. So if you're using legal documentation and you see the word person, you would have to look at the legal definition of it, right? Whereas when you're just talking amongst yourselves, you know how you're using the word person, right? You know what you mean when you say it, but that's not going to be the same thing as what's meant in a legal contract.
Gotcha.
So there's all kinds of different ways this stuff can float, and you really have to know what the meaning is for the usage that you're using it for today.
So in a way, the many meanings are valid, no matter...
Depending on the situation.
Depending on the situation. Okay.
Yeah. So even though in our conversation, if I say person, you know what I'm talking about. If you see it written on a contract, you better figure out what they're using for a definition for that contractual version of it, because it may be very different than how you use that term in everyday language.
Got it. Thank you for that explanation. That really helps.
Good. Okay, so you ready to go to the next page? Because that's kind of a follow-up on that same word there, basically.
Ready. Slave, noun. Historically, a slave was a person, live man or woman, who was the chattel property of another. Originally, it was pronounced as Slav, reflecting that the term was coined due to the fact that so many Slavic people were captured and enslaved throughout history.
So we see the word person on this page referring to a live man or woman. Back here, currently, chattel wouldn't be considered a live man or woman. It would be a legal entity, a fiction. Okay? In the past, when obvious slavery existed, the physical person was the slave. That's when this phrase is talking about here. But that word person has converted over here to being chattel property, not representing the live man or woman, but it's still chattel property. Okay? So here, the slavery that existed because of that chattel property of the person, the physical human being the slave or the owned property. Here, there's a person that's chattel property and owned, but it's not obvious that the slavery exists here. It's hidden.
Right. And it's hidden because, people will sometimes amongst us will say, now, is that you, the live man or woman speaking, or is that your person? It's like my person. It's because we have something operating. We have the same name. One is representing a fictional or generally a legal entity that someone else has created for our usage, maybe on our behalf, maybe not so much on our behalf, but trying to connect it to us, the live man or woman, with the same name. Okay? One is me, the old-fashioned person, okay, representing the people. And then in modern times, and we're saying modern times in over the last 100 years, now representing a legal entity called a person, which is a legal term. So I would say anyone, stepping into this arena, don't let it mess with your head too much. Kind of relax with it and go with it. And little by little, things will become a little clearer. But it is an important concept.
Now, this one here on this page, that is voluntary or involuntary slavery, right? These live people didn't volunteer for the most part for that situation. They were forced into it. That became illegal. right? So the Constitution doesn't allow for involuntary slavery. But this is voluntary slavery. You don't necessarily know you're volunteering, but you get into slavery only by volunteering in some form or another. Usually not by raising your hand and saying, this is what I want, but by not understanding something that you're signing.
Like in an unknown contract, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Or like maybe even before you're old enough to sign on your own, somebody else signed you away.
Very much.
Not you, but your person who you think you are.
Yeah.
Such an interesting word.
Yes.
I think the majority of us, when we discovered that we were chattel, was probably a surprise. It was to me.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a great explanation. That really, really helps to clarify it.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the next page then. Go ahead, Eliza.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Indenture, noun. An indenture is a written formal contract for services. In ancient times, the contract was written in 2 identical versions on a single sheet of parchment, which was then cut apart in a zigzag or indented line. Each party took one, and the genuineness of a document of indenture could be proved by laying it beside its counterpart.
Okay, that's fairly straightforward, I think. Do you guys have any thoughts on that one?
I just think it was a great way.
Yeah.
It was a great way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Of confirming those agreements or those contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Indenture, verb. To indenture something means to attach and bind a valuable asset to a contract, making it the guarantor for fulfilling the terms of that agreement. Indentured, adjective. To be indentured is to be bound by contract or covenant.
So, a question on the verb. To attach and bind a valuable asset to a contract. An example of that asset, could it be what we discussed, what chattel property was, such as vehicles, money, livestock, etc.?
Yeah, it could be collateral.
Any type of collateral.
Like an asset. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It can be not us, but our labor, the output of our labor.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
So, which is quite valuable, right?
Mm-hmm. Or in the past, again, it could be the live person, the live human.
Exactly.
Which is what we're going to get on the next page.
Got it.
Indentured servant, noun. An indentured servant is one bound by a contract for another for a specified period, usually in exchange for something of value, such as food, clothing, lodging, transportation, and other necessaries during the term of indenture.
Okay. So effectively, that sounds pretty much like a slave, doesn't it? We're going to get into, next week, we'll get into a story that really describes this really well. But an indentured servant was someone who got something for something else, right? So there's a contractual relationship. They're agreeing to be a servant in exchange for being taken care of, basically. And there's usually a term limit to that contract, which kind of defines the difference between an indentured servant and a pure slave. The slave usually doesn't have an end to that contract.
There is no contract,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. This one, there's an actual agreement. And many times, unfortunately, those people were effectively slaves because they were put into indentured servitude by someone else. It wasn't necessarily by their own choice, but it could be.
But could it be comparable to, let's say, modern times? I'm entering an agreement with an employer in exchange for a salary, and that salary is going to buy me food, clothing, lodging, transportation.
Yep.
Yes?
That's exactly right.
That's exactly
It's pretty much
what
the
it is.
same critter. Yeah.
Just maybe worded or presented a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
possibly.
Yeah. And you get to go home at night, right? You're not isolated into a location or anything like that. And with an indentured servant, you think of like, a castle, and you're working inside the castle for the king or whatever, right? Well, here the king stays in their house, and you get a house, and you get to be the indentured servant that runs back there and takes care of them during the day, and then goes back to your house.
If I can clarify, though, you do get to go home briefly to come back and do it all over again.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at least you get to go home.
You get to go home and spend most of your time sleeping, and then go back.
In traffic
So
and
that-
sleeping, yes.
Yeah. So how much time do you actually have free and with your family? Virtually none.
Exactly. Wow.
But it doesn't, you don't call yourself a servant, right? And everybody else is doing it. So it doesn't feel like slavery or servitude, but it pretty much is the same thing. But the best slave is a slave that thinks he's free.
Very much. Bond. Noun. A bond is a formal written agreement by which an individual binds himself, obligor, to perform some act to fulfill their obligations to a contract. Typically, the bond agreement requires someone to be the surety to guarantee or ensure that the obligor performs. Bondage, noun. Bondage is the legal condition of a serf or slave.
Any thoughts?
And surety, we'll be going into surety, but that's a very important term. Along with persons, surety, basically, someone else can be bound to a contract. A surety steps in to say, look, if that original person, man, woman, if they cannot fulfill this, I will guarantee through my labor or funds or whatever. If they can't perform, I will perform on their behalf. That's what the surety is. Who is then liable if the original obligor cannot fulfill?
Raina Stella, did you want to say something?
No, I'm the definition, the way Eliza's explaining it is making very good sense. So was it that ending a question for us, Eliza? Who is the surety?
As we go through it, along with person, who is actually ultimately at the other end of that contract. And a lot of times it's not us.
Yeah.
But we think it's us.
And the next
we'll
page,
get more into surety.
Yeah, the next page is surety. I want to give one example before we go there that I think a lot of people could relate to. With student loans, for example, many times the student isn't able to qualify on their own, so the parents will sign as the secondary on it, basically. So in other words, the student's liable, but if the student isn't able to pay, then they can come and collect from the parent.
As we know it as co-signers per se. Right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Co-signer.
Yeah. So the co-signer is effectively the surety for that, right? If you don't pay it, then it becomes the responsibility of the co-signer. So the co-signer is effectively acting as surety for your obligation, just in case you don't perform.
Great example. So now we're getting into the actual definition of surety. Surety, noun. A surety is a promise, assurance, or guarantee that gives a sense of confidence and freedom from the risk, providing a sense of safety and security. In the context of commercial law, it refers to a third party who guarantees the performance of the person who owes the obligation.
So pretty much a cosigner in our current situation. Somebody
and
else.
I like that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's that they put the word third party in there because it takes two parties to enact a contract, right? A third party then would be that surety.
In the example Ken gave, right? So you have the school and then the student, third party being the parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the exact example. So in the context of commercial law, is there a difference from the example you gave previously, Ken?
No, I mean, it's a cosigner is exactly it. Like the cosigner really isn't a direct party to the contract, right? The contract is between these two, but they're coming along behind it and saying, and if they don't follow through, I'll take care of it. I'll do it for them. So it's a voluntary situation, right? They're not forced into it. They're agreeing to take on this obligation if the other party doesn't perform.
And as we get into commercial law and to the legal system, what we'll find is many times we think that we are the ultimate surety for that person that we described earlier that looks like us, has our name, but is actually a legal entity. And we are ultimately, unless we volunteer, we are ultimately not the surety, not the guarantor for the obligations of that person, that thing, that fictional legal entity. This is a huge concept that we're getting into, and we'll spend more time on it. But it's a big and important one.
And somehow we all do believe, all of us, at one point believed we were the surety.
Mm-hmm.
But we've learned that we're not. And that's, again,
I think most of us don't even, until we start studying this stuff, most of us don't even understand that there is a third party surety. We think we are the one that made the contract. And so we think we're the student signing the student loan contract, when in reality, we're the parent volunteering to be the collateral for the student's loan. Does that make sense? So it's not really the parent's responsibility. They're choosing to participate in that and become the collateral. So, we're doing that too, but we just don't know that we're doing it.
So with that same example that we've been using about the student loan, the school, the parents,
mm-hmm.
You're telling me, say for example, if the parents would not co-sign, there is still a third party there in that contract.
No, if they didn't sign the contract, if they didn't make a voluntary agreement to participate in that, they would have no responsibility toward it.
They would not, the parents.
The parents would not.
But we have the school,
mm-hmm.
we have the student. The student enters into that contract.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, is there a third party?
Nope.
Actually, yes. It's a yes and no, and this is the complexity, but importance of this concept. The contracting is actually occurring with your person, with the all caps entity. It's not the contract with the live man or woman, but the live man woman doesn't realize that and is coming forth as the voluntary surety to say, with my hard labor over the next 30 years, I will try to pay this off. This is really, it's a nuance, but it's important.
Let me go back and make the analogies, okay? The two parties involved in the contract are the student and the school. Those are the two involved in the contract. The third party that's volunteering to collateralize it is the parent. The parent's not part of that basic contract. They're adding themselves in. When we're doing what we're doing, it's not us that's doing it. When you're going into a contract, it's your person that's going into your contract. But that person, that legal person with your social security number, can't sign a piece of paper. They can't sign a contract. So a third party has to participate in that arrangement in order for it to exist. Does that make sense? So you think you're signing the contract for you, but you're not. You're signing the contract for your person who's liable, but by signing the contract for them, you're taking on the responsibility like the parent did voluntarily. You just don't realize that you did that.
And
Exactly.
It was definitely the reason why I brought it up. And thank you, Eliza, for definitely getting to this part, right, is so important because it is a little bit complex, but just the example you used was perfect, Ken, right? That example was perfect. And I wanted to make sure we wouldn't miss the opportunity to say, hey, let's get the parents out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And let's help them understand that there is a third party involved.
Yep. Because when you're doing the school contract, you recognize that parent is over there. That's that guy over there, and I'm over here. You recognize that these are not both the same thing, right? But in a normal contractual situation, when it's your person, your Social Security fictional legal person that's contracting, you think you're it. So you don't realize when you're signing that, you're jumping into that contract voluntarily when it's really your person that should be doing the contracting. But your person can't sign a piece of paper.
Right.
So,
But there are three parties there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So is it fair to say, right? Is it fair to say that if we think back, if we just pause for a second and think back, aside of a student loan, what else have we applied for, registered, entered into a contract? Maybe you bought a car. Is it fair to say that all of the above, there has been three people involved?
Three parties. Three parties
involved.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, because of the definition, the word, the noun, from that, we think the living woman, is the surety for that contract, that application, that agreement.
We have volunteered ourselves to be the surety. So
we have volunteered ourselves.
So we have become that. We shouldn't have, but we did because we volunteered to be that without understanding that we were volunteering to do that, because we didn't realize there was a second person. Does that make sense? We thought we were the person. Now, when you're like with the student and the parent and the student loan, you recognize here's two human beings standing here. One's my parent, one's me. This is a fictional person that you don't see, you don't feel, you don't touch, but it's a legal entity. And it's involved in the contract, and it's the one actually making the contract, but it can't sign its signature. So there's two parties there, but you don't see the other one because it's a fictional entity. that requires you to participate with it in order to make itself liable, which then means you've made yourself liable in the process of giving it the capacity to enter into the contract.
So we have voluntarily entered and have become the surety. Not to get too ahead, but we will have discussions that there is a solution and we are able to undo those actions.
Now, here's the key.
And that's where we're getting.
Go ahead, Eliza.
I was just going to add, say, a bank or for student loans, it's the government. Unlike me going next door to my neighbor, and I'm not going as my fictional person. I'm not going as my 9-digit Social Security entity. Okay, I'm going as live man and woman. We shake hands. Look, I'll pay you $10. You come mow my lawn. Okay, cut my grass. That's live man and woman. Okay, what the government or a bank, etc. They don't want to contract with me, the live man and woman. They can't. They're a corporation, as we discussed with contracts. Only like parties can contract. Mm-hmm. But as you've been both describing very aptly, is that something like the live me must stand as surety, say with my signature, for that entity, that 9-digit entity that is contracting with the corporation to corporation. So there's the third party, but they don't want to contract with me. They can't, but they need me. And I'm volunteering.
But they will contract in a heartbeat with we'll call it all caps name or the 9-digit Social Security name.
Mm-hmm.
In a heartbeat.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah. Eliza made a real strong point there, and that is there's private agreements and there's non-private agreements, right? In a private agreement with your neighbor next door, your neighbor's not going to ask you for your Social Security number. You're not going to give it to him. That's not part of the deal. This is not a commercial action. This is a private agreement between the two of you. It can either be written or not, but your Social Security number is irrelevant to your neighbor. But if you do anything with a bank or a credit card company, they will never do the transaction without a Social Security number because that's who they're really contracting with. That Social Security number can't write anything, right? They can't talk, speak, or write. So some live human being has to do that action. And by doing that, we make ourselves the surety into that contract.
That is clear to me. That is wonderful. Thank you both.
And it's the way the system has to work for commercial actions, right? But it has to happen for all transactions because you can do private arrangements that don't involve that at all.
Great discussion.
Yes.
Okay, a deed. A deed as a noun. A deed is that which has been done, acted, or performed. Thus, the name of the written instrument signed and delivered by which one person conveys land, tenements, or hereditaments to another. Hereditaments to another.
That's a tough word.
It's a great word. It's mm-hmm. anything that can be inherited, right?
So, conveyance of property, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all pretty familiar with what a deed is in a way, right? Mm-hmm. Probably dealt with it somehow, one way or another.
Yeah, usually.
With our actions.
Yeah.
We'll go on to find. No,
go ahead,
please.
Go ahead. Yeah, I mean, a deed is an interesting word because if you're talking about it in a real estate concept, you're thinking about the deed, the written deed, right? But deeds are actions too. Yeah. So
And we'll find out the importance of this because they are actionable things, and they must be actioned in order for you to have their full benefit. And we'll go on to discuss that. But a lot of times these are gotcha moments that we're not basically acting on and acknowledging or accepting the deed. And again, that's a deeper conversation. But the word deed is here because it is important. Trust, noun. A trust is an arrangement where one person, called the trustee, is given control over property or assets by another person, called the grantor or settlor. The trustee is responsible for managing and using the property according to the instructions of the grantor for the benefit of a third party, called the beneficiary.
Most of us probably are used to, outside of the business type context, thinking of trust as in I trust you or I don't trust you. And that's part of this too, right? Because in a trust, there has to be trust. You're trusting as the trustor or the grantor or settler, you're trusting the trustee to do what you're instructing them to do or to treat the assets the way you want them to be treated or in an appropriate way for the benefit of a beneficiary. So there's 3 components, and the grantor is trusting the trustee to do their job, basically. So trust is involved in a trust.
When I first heard about trust, in my mind, it's always a discussion for like people that had or have a lot of money. Then I learned that, or we're all going to be surprised that reality is no, you don't have to have a lot of money. We all are dealing with trust on a daily basis from the day we were born. So that's going to be a surprise for all of us as we're entering this path here, because for whatever reason, I think by default we always think that trust is just to be discussed by the wealthy.
I think you're right too, and most of us are involved in trust relationships, but we don't recognize them as a trust relationship. So we don't get the benefit of having an appropriate trust established, not because we aren't in the trust relationship, but because we haven't documented it properly. We don't understand that we're even in a trust relationship. So we don't benefit from it. The people that know how to use them get the benefit from them.
Exactly.
So let's learn how to use them.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Because you look at this trustee being responsible for managing and paying the bills and all of this. So many times we have inadvertently, once again, a trust is a special type of contract. And we have been volunteering to be the guy that pays the bills. They have us in a trust. Can you describe that well? So as we go through and learn this is a big concept. And I used to think the same thing, Reina Stella, that trusts were for the wealthy. It was a big legal, that everything had to be a statutory legal type thing, etc. It's a huge field, and we're in them all the time.
And when we start learning about them, it opens so many doors, so many ideas, and wow, the empowerment of having them, but not only recognizing that there's so many different type of trust that we can establish for our benefit. So it's a big topic.
And the most common type of trust that most people, if they are aware of trusts, mostly people know about living trusts, which really all they are is a methodology for avoiding probate and passing down to your children or whoever you want to pass down your assets to. But there's much more to utilizing trusts appropriately than that. Because while you're alive in that kind of trust, you don't get the benefit of the trust. You only get the benefit of the trust when you die, because the purpose of a living trust is to avoid probate when you die. So there's no value in it until you die. Trusts can be used and are used. These other types, like you were mentioning, Ray and Estelle, are very wealthy people. They're not waiting until they die to benefit from the trusts. They're utilizing trusts while they're alive. But that's a very different type of trust than what most people think of when they actually say, I've got a living trust. I've got my house in trust or whatever. That's usually not what I would call a trust. That's just a methodology to avoid probate on death.
So last night we were having our family meeting with my family, my youngsters, my husband, and it was this was my exact reaction when I asked one of my young adults, what is a will, right? Because you're saying living trust, Ken. Mm-hmm. Living trust is a will.
Mm-hmm.
And when she replied, a will is a list of assets that you pass on when you die. And I said, yes, that's exactly what it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I told her the type of trust we're discussing tonight is one that we can utilize while we're living.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the meeting went on for 2 hours. But anyways, I was such a proud mom. I was like, yes.
That's very cool.
You guys are understanding it.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
That's great. I was talking with a patient this last week about the same concept. And this lady happens to be, was for many years a type of paralegal. I'm not sure. She worked in a law office for many years. I'm not sure what her title was, but she has lots of friends that are lawyers and they help her out with stuff, and I was talking about a trust and she said, oh, I've got all that handled. My lawyer set this all up for me. And so my house is already set up to avoid probate. And she didn't have a living will, or she didn't have a living trust, but they had done it a different way. Basically, as I understand it, they basically already put the name of the children on the title, which is a little risky because that means the children have ownership, basically, right? But it would accomplish what she was after at death, just like a living trust. A living trust would accomplish what you're after at death to avoid probate. And so she thought she had it all handled, and it took me a little while to get it through her head. I'm not talking about when you die. I understand you have that arranged. I'm talking about what if something happens to you while you're alive and somebody comes after that asset? You have no protection because it is in your name. If you get sued, if you have an accident, and this isn't a lady that's getting up there in her years and her husband's even older. And I said, or if you have to go into a nursing home or your husband has to go into a nursing home and they want to get paid a whole lot of money, your assets are part of that deal. So if they're in a living will, they're not separated from you. They're still yours. And so they can be taken to pay off those debts. But if you have the appropriate type of will established, it's not in your name. You're still controlling the asset, but it's not in your legal name, and therefore no one else can take it. So anyway, we're getting way deep into the trust here.
It's an exciting topic because, again, it opens up so much for us. So
absolutely. I wish I knew.
That's a really good one.
I wish I knew about it years ago.
We all do. We all do. But hey, it's never too late. We're on it.
That's right. All right.
Okay, title, a verb and a noun. As a verb, to title means to record and furnish a rightful claim to something. As a noun, a title is a formal right of ownership whereby the owner has the just possession of their property. We often hear of transfer of title we title something and then we transfer titles, we're transferring a formal right of ownership.
And we're not getting deep into it right now, but there is another section of this. Since we just talked about trust, there's legal title and there's beneficial title. So like what we were saying there at the very end, if you have a living trust, you have still legal title to that house effectively, because you're the one that they can come after. Even though the name of the trust is on the title, you're still basically 100% the same thing as the trust. You haven't created a separation there. With an appropriate trust, you don't have the legal title anymore. You have the use of the house, which is the beneficial ownership of the house. You get the benefits of owning the house, but you don't have the responsibilities of danger of somebody coming and taking it from you because it's not in your legal name. So that's just another phase on titles.
Very important.
Since we're on that topic, though, of titles, would it be, just to expand on it a little bit and maybe give an example, is when you go and purchase a car, the MSO of the car is sent to the state, right? And then the state issues us a certificate of title.
Mm-hmm.
So they are...
Describe for people MSO.
So it's pretty much, I guess you can look at it as the manufacturer created this vehicle. The vehicle or the car is born. So it's pretty much the document.
It's a birth certificate.
Like a birth certificate. The document that confirms that this was manufactured, with whatever, But yeah, a birth certificate of the car, to simplify it. So then now a certificate of title is handed to us, right? So then that gives us pretty much, I guess, the right, right? The right of ownership to that vehicle. We can utilize it. We can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
I think, see, this is where we're getting into title and certificate of title.
Mm-hmm.
Who actually has been titled to the ownership of that. What we're being issued is a certificate, just like the birth certificate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't own it.
Right.
We don't have rights over it. All we were being handed is the ability to pay the bills. So, and this is
use the asset too.
Use of it.
The benefit of using the asset.
Exactly. So, this is a huge area we could really spend a lot of time getting into.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to be clear, certificate of title is not title.
So,
we think it's the title,
right,
but
so
it's a certificate.
So then the state holds the title and gives us a certificate of title. We have the liability of it. We can utilize it. We have the benefit to use it, but we also have the responsibility to take care of it for them.
Mm-hmm.
They hold the title. We have a certificate.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's why they can charge you a registration fee or rent on the car that they actually own.
Yeah, because we're a tenant on the car, on the house.
Yep.
You name it. Yeah.
So this example of a car, right, where the state has the actual title and we have a certificate of the title, for anything that, like, let's just again pause and think back. What have I registered? What have I, what do I have a title, a certificate of? It's the exact same, just the same exact analogy that you can sort of put to it. Helps you understand what we're talking about, but it's across the board. Anything that you have a certificate of title of is the same thing. You have the
and that's why
I use it, but you're responsible for it.
Exactly. Like if you registered something, and we're getting off in the weeds a little bit, but if you register something, you're transferring title. I don't care if it's your new computer, etc. Not registering it does not invalidate a warranty or anything else. But what you're doing is they're asking you, can you please register the legal ownership, the ownership of this thing back to us that we just sold you? It's like, sure, here's my registration for a benefit or a privilege. Maybe they'll give you free stuff or something.
Wait,
but
we registered for an app. Does that apply as well?
Apps are some of the worst. They are.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world, but
you're not going to get an app without giving up information.
Exactly.
And information is important stuff.
And again, just bottom line is like, if we are having to register, we are having to give up something for that. They're taking something from us for that registration.
It's an exchange of title. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
Oh, here's a fun, not so fun
We're
word.
going to end on a really fun word here, aren't we?
Yeah, on a really fun one. Happy dappy all the way. Bankruptcy, noun. Bankruptcy derives from the word bank, literally a bench in a moneylender's shop, and the word rupture, meaning broken. The word is said to have originated from an old custom of breaking the bench of insolvent persons to signify their financial failure.
Can you guys envision that taking place? It's pretty wild.
It sounds painful.
So that's a fairly clear picture, I think.
Yeah,
so
visual on it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything you guys want to reflect back over, or have we beat this one up pretty good?
Well, I think we've covered it really well, but we have to definitely make everyone aware that this is just a few words.
Mm-hmm.
But exactly how we broke them down and we talked about them is how we should be doing every single word really that we're encountering as we are entering into agreements, contracts, and so forth. So these are just a few words of many that are very, very important. So I say we covered it really well, and there were some fun ones here that will come up again.
Mm-hmm. And the concept underlying this is there's a lot of hidden stuff that you may even think you understand what the word means and what you're getting yourself into, but there might be a whole lot more to it than what you understand. And you might be volunteering for things that you don't need to volunteer for, but then you're obligating yourself with that volunteering, even though most of the time when people are volunteering, they think it's required.
Absolutely, because we're told that you must do this. There's never a law given, or rare, sometimes not like this is the law. It just says you must, or you should,
or it's mandatory.
And we say or mandatory, a mandate that we go ahead and comply. But I like this, what we've discussed today, because these words interconnect. They've been carefully chosen because they do connect. And, some of the biggest aha moments will come when it's really felt that there's a difference between your person and you as a people, okay? And how that connects to the word surety and who you are standing in as surety voluntarily. And then it goes back to our discussions of contract and trust, a special kind of contract. This is a lot. This is one that I think that, someone may want to go and review a few times to really grasp what these terms, the importance of these terms, what they really, really mean for you. For you, not just what they mean, but what they mean for you. Hope that sounds okay.
And can anyone think of anything that was mandatory and that we had to comply? Right?
Careful.
Anyways,
that's our Reina Stella. She's going to poke the bear.
I can't think of anything, but it's been fun, guys.
It has. I think so too.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been.
Any last words before we cut out here?
Enjoy the rest of your evening, guys.
Same.
It was great.
And thank you.
Thanks a lot. We're going to do...
Much love.
Yeah, next week is going to be story time. It's going to be kind of fun, but it's a story example of what we just went through. I think that will make it very clear to people. All right,
Awesome. Can't wait.
See you next round.
All right.
All right. See you
Bye.
then. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The views expressed in this Liberty Ark podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They do not constitute legal or tax advice, and they may not reflect the official positions of anyone at all, really. We want to express our appreciation to the authors of the unpublished manuscript titled The Great International Heist, on which the Liberty Ark podcast is based. Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues, the authors, provide courses that go into much greater depth and are available at libertyarkpodcast.com/White Rabbit.